welcome back to Manic Minds. Take a bit of a break from making our way through my disorders this week and discuss mindfulness, the M word.
Oh, yes.
Now,
I can hear the click of people immediately turning away from
yeah.
Stick with it.
Stick with it. So a bit of a shorter episode today, but also I'm going to kind of take a little bit of a backseat here, especially when on technical terms, because I have had the pleasure of being in some of your mindfulness presentations, and you definitely know way more technically than I do. I know a little bit more about practicing mindfulness in a way that, for lack of better words, doesn't sound as fucking stupid.
Yeah.
But we'll get there. So
that's fine. And I don't want this to be like yet another video that you see online of someone telling you how great mindfulness is and stuff. Like, it's useful for like us to talk about our lived experience of it and how we found it. And
we do have very different experiences of mindfulness, right the way from like how we view it to how we practice it, essentially. So
absolutely. And as ever, we're not advocating necessarily for any of this. We're just talking about how it's worked for us, maybe. Mm-hmm. If someone wanted to take that away and try it, then happy days.
Yep. So I'm gonna just kind of take a step back here and give you the floor momentarily and I'll pitch in.
But yeah, I mean, it's by way of like introduction, I guess. I think one thing I want to kind of get across in this video is that mindfulness shouldn't be seen as like one of many different coping techniques and strategies. Like, in my personal opinion, mindfulness underpins everything that we currently know and do when it comes to mental health.
Yeah.
So it would be, I guess, beneficial to talk a bit about what it actually is. So first of all, I wanted to just make a separation between the word mindfulness and the word meditation.
Yeah.
Different people will have different views on it. Some people say they're the same thing. Some people say there's little differences, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to be using the word mindfulness rather than meditation, unless we're specifically referring to a meditative practice. So the best way I would explain what mindfulness is that it's a technique in which you attempt to separate yourself from your thoughts. Mm-hmm. I know it's a very simplistic, like, one sentence description of what it is, but I think that at its core, and for the purpose of this video and what people are going to take away from it, I think that's a really key thing to focus on. Mm-hmm. The reason why that is so key, I think, is because when you think about any mental health condition or disorder, so the things that we've spoke about so far, yes, they're all very different, and they all come with different symptoms, and the impact on your life is different to various degrees. But at the centre or at the core of every mental health condition, I think anyway, is a particular thought pattern.
Yeah.
So if you think about depression, for example, the thought pattern is typically, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of being here, the world kind of sucks anyway, I hate kind of everybody, like, what's the point in kind of carrying on, basically. That is a thought process that we go through. Similarly with anxiety, so a couple of episodes ago you spoke about your first experience of agoraphobia.
Yep.
Now again, there would have been a thought process there somewhere. Mm-hmm. The idea that I can't open my door because I can't go outside because something bad's going to happen. Yeah. There's a threat out there that's going to harm me.
The saber-toothed tiger.
The saber-toothed tiger, yeah, exactly. So if we want to have any chance really of actually tackling some kind of mental health condition that we have to recognise there's a thought process in there. And how are you going to try and mess with that thought process or change that thought process if we don't first realise that we're not the same as our thoughts? Mm-hmm. So it's very much about bringing the thinker back away from the thoughts and getting the thinker to sort of reassess the thoughts. And that's essentially like a central tenet of CBT, and that's what the NHS predominantly practices. Being able to realign your thoughts, look at them, challenge them. You wouldn't be able to do that if you didn't first appreciate that you are the same as your thoughts. And that's where getting a sort of a greater control over our minds comes from.
Yeah.
So it's a difference between constantly being in the middle of our thoughts. So like imagine you're kind of in an ocean of thoughts, drowning and treading water, and it's really difficult to kind of make any sense of and get any control over. But if you can find a raft and you can sort of separate yourself from the ocean a little bit, at least you can start to think, all right, okay, what can I do now? Best way out of this. So yeah, very whistle stop kind of description of what meditation, mindfulness is.
Funny that you bring up CBT, because that was actually what I was thinking as you were talking. There's like, realistically, when you look at treatments for any mental health condition, you're talking therapy treatments. Yeah. You're looking at your CBT, your DBT, your CAT, like they're all about repatterning your thought process and realizing that your brain's an organ. It can get sick like any other organ. That doesn't mean that it's untreatable, it's unfixable. It's just about, use the pun, being mindful of what you're doing to it. And if you broke your leg, you don't then go out and play football on your leg. If you're suffering with depression, there are things that you can do to help heal your brain, mindfulness being one of them.
Not just CBT, I mean, like more like humanistic types of therapy where it's just literally more about just that dialogue between you and your therapist. Like, in a way, your therapist is kind of acting as that reminder to you that you're not your thoughts. So if you say to your therapist, like, I'm not good enough, everybody hates me, it's the therapist's job to like help you to tackle that.
Yeah, I mean, just from off the back of that, like I've been there where I have outright said to my therapist, like, I'm not worthy, like I'm not good enough to be here. And she has looked me dead in the eyes, as the previous therapist looked me dead in the eyes and gone, why? Explain it to me. And then being challenged with that of going, I have no logical reason as to why, essentially.
And that's an example of how thoughts can have such a controlling element to them. If you keep listening to thoughts of you're not good enough, like eventually that's going to be really hard to challenge because it becomes so entrenched and familiar to you.
Well, I mean, I quite often say to you, and you've heard us say it to other people as well, there is a level of thinking positive that helps. Like, obviously, it's not going to cure anything, like, but positive thinking does assist you in many ways.
And again, we wouldn't be able to do that. We wouldn't be able to turn a negative thought into a positive thought without first separating ourselves from the thought itself. Another good thing, another sort of key element of mindfulness is, and again, something that gets employed a lot by therapists is like acceptance-based therapy as well. So that's one of the sort of defining features of modern day CBT is that it has an element of accepting what is. So again, this is much easier said than done, but I know a lot of people that go to therapy for trauma, for example, they kind of go into it thinking, like, I want to get past this now. How do I get past this? First question I might want to kind of ask them is, to what extent have you actually accepted that it's happened? Because again, you're not really going to have much chance of moving on from something if you first don't accept where you are and accept what's happened to you.
I mean, I know acceptance comes under DBT skills as well. There's a whole thing around that to do with, same with letting go of control. Like, accepting that you can't control everything. And there are certain things that you're not going to have control over, and mindfulness was definitely a way to repattern my brain. I mean, I am a little Miss Control Freak. I like to have control over everything. And, mindfulness really helps us to be able to separate the two nicely between, this is what I am in control over and I can fix and I can do something about. These are the things that I have no control over. Therefore, what's the point in worrying, essentially?
It should be no surprise that these types of thoughts and like principles have existed for they existed before our very civilization, if you think about it that way. Like they traditionally do come from like Eastern practices and things like that. And then you study a lot of the ancient philosophers, and they will have these sorts of principles in their work that are related to this idea of the mind as a tool, as a thing that we shouldn't confuse with ourselves as a whole. So it stood the test of time, so there must be something to it, I guess. But maybe let's start to kind challenge some kind of myths and things about it. So, I know that obviously you've had a long journey with mental health and various different interventions and things. Do you want to maybe talk about the first time mindfulness was suggested to you and how it actually made you feel, and be honest?
You want honesty? You can have honesty. This is still, to this day, the opinion's changed slightly, but it's still an opinion that I hold. I remember the first time I had mindfulness suggested to us, and I remember thinking, why on earth would I do that? That is fucking stupid. Like, I'm not doing that. Because in my head, when somebody went, you know what, you should try mindfulness, try a bit of meditation, it works the world good for me. All I could picture was a monk sitting there meditating. That's what I've got in my head. And I'm like, darling, where have I got the fucking time in my schedule? Have you seen my diary? Where have I got time to dedicate an hour a day to mindfulness? No, I physically can't do it. And I was like, excuses after excuses of like, it won't work, it's stupid, da 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 da. And as time progressed, I was like, right, tell you what, fine, fuck it, because you won't leave it alone. I will give mindfulness a go, okay? So I went home and I went on YouTube and I typed in mindfulness videos, and what's it bring up? A shitload of meditation stuff. Okay, we'll try meditating. And I can remember being sat on the floor, and within 2 minutes I was bored. I was like, I am so fucking bored. Like, this is driving us crazy. And all I could think about was all the shit I could be doing rather than sitting on the floor fucking meditating. Now, obviously, I'm very well aware as I developed, understanding and skill sets around mindfulness, I understand that that's like it was kind of my brain's way of saying, hey, this version of mindfulness doesn't work for you. You're not putting yourself in the headspace to be present in the moment and be able to park your other thoughts, because this just doesn't work for you. So I was like, right, okay, I'm not doing it. So I'm back to therapy the next week. And they're like, did you try mindfulness? And I was like, I did. It sucks. It's fucking stupid. I'm not doing it. Like, you know what? You know me. Every skill you throw my way, I will give a go. But mindfulness is fucking stupid. And I can remember my therapist just smirking. And she was like, I thought you might say that, because I thought that when I first gave it a go. And I was like, right, okay, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I've trusted you this far. Like, Howie, what do you reckon then? Because, like, explain it to me like I'm 5, essentially. And she was like, it doesn't have to be meditation. You can build it into the things that you already do. And she said it was, what toothpaste do you use? And I was like, the cheapest one, like whatever. And she's like, right, so when you go home, say you've got Aquafresh, go and buy a different flavour. I was like, right, where are you going with this? And she's like, every time you clean your teeth, alternate the toothpaste that you use. And for the 2 minutes that you're standing there cleaning your teeth, just think about, like, don't think about anything else. Just all I want you to think about is the taste, the texture, how much the toothpaste foams in your mouth, like that kind of stuff. Just be present in what you are doing. Don't wander into a million different places. Don't just like zone out and stare in the mirror or something. Like, just actually think about what's going on. Right, okay, no problem, I'll try that then. And I remember literally walking home with headphones and I was literally listening to a podcast walking home, kicking stones, going, fucking buy a second set of toothpaste, fucking stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, ranting on in my own head about how fucking pathetic it was that I was at such a low point that I needed to buy a second flavour of toothpaste. Because that, to me, just sounded fucking ludicrous. It works. I'm not okay with the fact it works. I'm still not okay to this day. This was 5 years ago. I'm still not okay with the fact that cleaning my teeth with a different flavour of toothpaste every single time I clean my teeth, so twice a day, 2 minutes each time, 4 minutes total of mindfulness every single day for the last 5 years. And I hate that it works, because it is fucking stupid. It sounds ridiculous, but it works. Please take away from the fact that it works.
The reason why I think it sounds so stupid and ridiculous to people is because it's so simple. Like, we, in one of our last episodes, we were talking about that often the problem is people don't aim low enough. They think that some big change that's going to come through this glorious technique that they've never heard of before. And when someone starts talking to you about, going back to those basics of focusing on like the taste of toothpaste, you think that just sounds ridiculous.
I literally remember looking at her and thinking, are you for fucking real? I'm like 24 years of age. and you're telling me to concentrate on the flavour of toothpaste. And then what made it even worse was when I went to buy the different toothpaste, because, as adults, most of the time it's just mint flavoured toothpaste. I had to buy child's flavoured toothpaste because then I could get strawberry. Yeah. So it was like, what the fuck is this shit? But it really does work. And I think the big one for me was the understanding that I didn't have to dedicate a portion of my day to mindfulness. I could do it with tasks I already do. Mm-hmm. Different flavoured syrups in my coffee. Concentrate on the flavour. Yeah. Different flavoured tea. The different flavoured tea, when doing mindfulness with my cup of tea, that's so good for when I can't sleep. It's part of my sleep hygiene protocol. If I can't sleep, get up, make a different flavoured tea, concentrate on the heat, the smell, all that sort of shit. Be mindful, bring yourself to the present moment. It will knock you clean out.
Yeah. And that's like the different ways that we see mindfulness. Because I think that whilst mindfulness can be used in that way of like an actual technique, I think there's so much more to it. I think that mindfulness is really about fundamentally changing the way that you kind of understand yourself and the world. And again, think about someone who's very depressed. Like they will have a particular opinion about the world and about themselves that they can't seem to get rid of. And mindfulness is kind of saying, you do know you can change that, don't you? Mm-hmm. Like you do know that this shouldn't have to define you. Yeah. Like you shouldn't have to think this way your whole life. You can do things to kind of reassess how you see things. So yes, it's a technique that can be used on like the odd occasion, but it's also something that should ground everything that you do, in my opinion. And the first step, like I say, is recognizing that we have thoughts. We're not our thoughts. We're not defined by thoughts.
Yeah.
If you imagine if everybody took every single thought they had seriously and acted upon it.
Yeah.
Like prison population would multiply by about 5,000%.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would still be alive.
I think at that point it would be you put people who don't think like that in prison to keep them safe, and just exactly. Let people who have those kind of thoughts run the world.
Exactly. Yeah. And as ever, it's really interesting and useful to hear about like your lived experience of it. I suppose I have a different experience of it. I mean, I kind of went into it initially to learn about meditation more than mindfulness. Mindfulness is something I kind of learned or became aware of a bit later. I suppose you could say that one of the reasons why I went was because I was feeling quite stressed at work and everything was quite overwhelming. But there was also a part of me that was just interested in it.
Yeah.
So the reason why you sat there for 2 minutes and got bored was because someone told you to do it.
Yeah.
And you just thought, I'll give it a go. Whereas I kind of went into it of like, I've heard a bit about this, and I'm kind of curious as to what it's like to meditate, and that's how I was able to keep my interest for longer. So if someone says to you, you should try meditating, I'd be a bit cautious of that. I'm not saying they're wrong to suggest it, but you need to kind of fully understand what you think you're going to get out of it before you try it.
Yeah.
It's not something you can just sort of give a go. Whereas mindfulness kind of, is. And without knowing it, so many people do employ mindfulness-based techniques all the time. So like, a couple of videos ago, or the last video, we talked about things like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounded technique, about box breathing, the stop skills. They're all kind of grounded in that. So we were talking about panic attacks before in the anxiety episode. And this idea that everything kind of goes offline and you sort of lose sense of kind of where you are and your senses go all fuzzy. And like by employing grounded techniques, you're able to kind of recenter yourself, or for want of a better word, and sort of bring everything back under your control. And that technique wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the idea of mindfulness.
Yeah. I mean, just on the panic attack front, because it was something that I completely slipped my mind because I wasn't thinking about mindfulness. But one that really helps me when I'm really anxious, gum, flavoured gum, like just having a couple of different flavoured packets in the bottom of my bag. And then if I start getting to the point where I'm feeling really panicky, or like, I need to bring myself back down quickly, but without drawing attention to myself, gum, concentrate on it, just think about the flavour, and as the texture changes, if you want to blow a couple of bubbles, that's a really simple grounding technique that is rooted in mindfulness.
Well, I was going to say, look at the thing you've got in your hand at the moment. I mean,
Thanks for this, by the way.
Why do you think fidget spinners are so effective? It's something that can, if you're sitting there and you're being swept away by anxious thoughts about something you've got coming up in half an hour, just taking a second to just play with the fidget spinner for us just gives you that little bit of sense of relief from it.
Funny that you bring this up, actually, because I was thinking there'll be times where it fully looks like I couldn't give a shit about what you're saying, and it's not. It's actually because if I don't have something to do with my hands, I can't concentrate on what you're saying to me. My mind will wander, and what I'll be doing is second guessing what you're about to say so that I've got an answer prepared, and that is listening to respond, not listening to understand. So and I don't know how much you can hear me spinning this on the microphone, so if you can, I apologise.
Yes, if we think about the fact that there are many different ways that someone can employ mindfulness, I suppose my advice would be to start with your five senses.
Yeah.
That's the key thing to do. So anything that, if you ever feel yourself getting overwhelmed, think of something that's going to almost sort of shock your senses a little bit. So they say that a good way of stopping thought spiraling is to sort of splash some cold water in your face.
I was just about to say, the reason I started to smirk was because I was wondering if you were going to go where I was going to go, and I remember being told at the end of every shower, blast it on cold for 10 seconds. After you've had your hot shower, flip it to cold, 10 seconds, just do it.
Yeah.
And again, stupidest thing I've ever heard, because you've met me, I'm always cold. I don't want to put myself in fucking cold water. But again, it's a way to ground you quickly. And the splashing cold water on your face, that one as well.
Yeah, and anything that you can sort of get through your senses. So, like, if you're in a place where you can put like a song on that you sort of like, that sort of brings you back down to earth a little bit, maybe sort of try that. Kind of anything that you're doing. So we mentioned about the flavored tea. So the most common form of meditating is to think about breath work as well. And that's another sort of example of how everyday things that we don't appreciate are actually grounded in mindfulness. Like if someone's talking at you quite erratically and they just look really overwhelmed, like the first thing you might say to them is just take a breath and start again.
Yeah, most people tend to go, right, stop, take a deep breath, try again.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's mindless. I do it all the time. But like, stop, breathe. Do you want to try that one again?
Yeah.
Like, there's loads of stuff that, and I think that's the thing, like that with mindfulness can be, for lack of a better word, annoying as somebody who knows it works.
Yeah.
Like, because you listen to people go like, or it's stupid, or giggle when you talk about it because like they think it's stupid. And I mean, as somebody who also agrees that it sounds fucking ridiculous, I can completely understand why you might think it sounds ridiculous. Because again, being there, done that, I still to this day think when I go to somebody, if you tried mindfulness, I want to shoot myself.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think people should stop saying it like that. Like in my practice with my clients, I try to avoid the word mindfulness as much as possible. I'll talk about specific techniques that you wouldn't necessarily think of or associate with mindfulness first, because it sounds more practical. Like if you're so overwhelmed and can't get hold of your thoughts, and someone says, "Have you tried mindfulness?" You just want to punch them in the face, really.
Yeah.
If somebody came to you and said, "Right, just stop for a minute, take a breath, count back from 20, tell me 5 things you can see in the room," like that is a technique that we both know works very well. And essentially, that is me asking them to employ mindfulness in a particular way.
Yeah. I mean, the big one for me was what I just said before about the realization that I can do mindfulness in the tasks that I already have to do today. So if I already have a list of things I need to do today and I'm looking going, what do you mean employ mindfulness on a daily basis? Where in that schedule have I got time to do mindfulness? Right, okay, but when I'm cleaning my teeth or when I get washed, like cold water at the end, like it's throughout your day. If you actually looked at your whole day, there's multiple occasions throughout the day that you could be doing just a quick 60 seconds, 120 seconds of mindfulness.
Yeah.
And if you build that into your day-to-day routine, before, because I mean, you mentioned something before we started recording about what was that? I can't think what the word that you used was, but it was about like essentially having like mindfulness every day and it being more of like a overarching thing for you, whereas I kind of always viewed myself as no, it is a technique I use to manage my mood.
Yeah.
But actually thinking about it, no, like because I do it every single day, it is something that underpins my entire life, that I'm being mindful on a daily basis.
Yeah. And you don't have to, if you're new to all this, you don't have to worry about getting to that place yet. Like that will kind of come in time. But there's like you said, there's more everyday practical sort of ways of getting into it. So if somebody comes to me and says, I just can't stop stressing, like my mind is always loud and stressful and I can't seem to get any control over anything, I'd say to them, okay, well, let's look at your daily routine. So what's one thing that you would do kind of every day? And they might say, well, I'll have dinner at around about sort of 6 o'clock every day if I can. Say, right, fine. So how long does it take to have dinner? Depending on how quickly, 15, 20 minutes. So that's 15, 20 minutes, right? What I want you to try and do, and it's not easy, but just try and employ this, is to, just for that 20 minutes when you're eating, really focus on the taste of the food and the texture, and like really make a point of getting so engrossed in it, and just watch how quickly your mind quietens down. And it might only be for that 20 minutes. It might be as soon as you've finished, your mind will start again. But that's 20 minutes that you've given yourself that you didn't have before. And when that starts to become more familiar to you, maybe sort of employ it in different parts of your day, so that you're not constantly in this heightened state of worry and panic. Like you've got breaks throughout the day to bring yourself down.
I think that's probably a really good one, because I think that's something that anybody can relate to. I mean, we've all been there where we're really hungry and we've been really looking forward to this meal, and the old blinkers are on. The only thing you're thinking about is this food and about how fucking incredible it is. You've completely shut down the conversation, the people around you. You're not watching telly. You're just concentrating on your food. It's that basically, like, just concentrate on the thing, not everything going on around you.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, the reason why people find it so frustrating is you think, well, that's not going to do anything, is it? Like, that's 20 minutes out of my day. The rest of the day, I'm stressed and worried. And it's like, well, you didn't have that 20 minutes yesterday. And having that 20 minutes and cultivating that 20 minutes will allow you to build it into more things throughout the day.
Baby steps to big changes.
Exactly.
Nice little callback there.
Yeah. Watch this space. But no, another thing, another sort of practical sort of tip that I learned when I first started was, this would depend on the kind of lifestyle you live, but you can get apps on your phone where you sort of schedule it to kind of go off every however long you want to set it for. So I used to have an app called Mindfulness Bell that every hour there'd be the sound of a gong just go off my phone, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. As soon as you hear the gong, right, just take a couple of seconds out and just sort of point to 5 things around you that you can see. We're getting into that grounding thing again. And because it will sort of remind you to do, you don't have to consciously think about, oh, today I've got to remember to count 5 things on my desk. Like the app will sort of remind you to do it. And it feels really weird and stupid when you first do it. But if you can make it a regular thing, what you're really doing is that, and there's evidence behind this. This isn't just us talking about it. Like, it's been proven through neurological studies that mindfulness affects the brain and changes the brain. There's such a thing called neuroplasticity, I want to say.
Yeah.
Again, not a neuroscientist.
Yeah, neither am I, but I do know that is how you pronounce that.
Yeah. Like the idea that the brain isn't this sort of fixed thing that stays the same forever. Like, different events and experiences change it, which means that we also have the ability to do that as well. The brain doesn't have to get changed through things that happen to us. We can actually do things that help it change as well. And mindfulness is a sort of it's a practice. It's like lifting weights. The consistency is the key to building muscle. Consistency to gaining a great sense of control over your brain is making regular mindfulness practice.
It's like anything, consistency is key. Nobody wakes up one morning and goes, you know what, I'm going to become a painter, and is the best painter in the world on their first attempt. You know, everything takes skill. I just want to quickly say as well, just with you mentioning an app before it's triggered in my brain, there is a really good app called Finch. Now, it's basically self-help, but you have a little penguin, and it's a little penguin, and you name the penguin, and you can buy it clothes, and you send it on adventures, and it brings you presents back and stuff. And you have to complete daily tasks that it'll give you suggestions, or you can set your own. And when you tick the tasks off, it'll give you more like kind of like coins essentially to bring him back from his adventure faster, or to buy more clothes for him. And it's really cool. And you level up, and you get a house and all this. It's Animal Crossing for self-help, essentially. It's really cool. And I mean, for me personally, I like to have something like that that's kind of a bit more interactive. That works really well for me. I've got my little, he's called Blubbers. Don't ask. He has existed for the last nearly 3 years now. But yeah, Finch, that's a really, really good app for mindfulness. If it's something that you want to try, but you don't really know where to start or how to build it into your day, like if you download the app and like I say, you get to play with a little penguin, and it'll give you little things. And like I found that was a really good way, because I struggled quite a lot to get my fitness journey started. It's like I knew I had to go to the gym. It took a while for us to get the confidence to go there. I built in star jumps and 60-second planks and things like that into my daily routine. I didn't fucking want to do the plank. No, I didn't. But you know what I did really want? I wanted Blubbers back from his adventure, because I wanted to know what little present he's got. So guess what? I did a plank for 60 seconds. Granted, bit of self-control there, because you could just tick it and say that you'd done it. But, really that's cheating yourself out of it. So, but yeah, there is multiple things that you can go down.
Oh yeah, there's a plethora of things out there at the minute. But I think if you're anyone like me that will get really kind of into something really quickly and then lose interest quite quickly, ADHD brain. Okay, don't get too put off by that. So if you try the Finch thing and it works for like a good 6 months or so, and then you get a bit bored of it and you realise you're not using it as much anymore, that doesn't mean that mindfulness isn't working. It just means that maybe find something else that's going to help kind of carry on.
Sometimes, I mean, it comes back to, I know I said in, I think it was last week's episode about find what motivates you and let it motivate you.
Yeah.
It's essentially the same thing. If you used, for argument's sake, Finch for 6 months, and then all of a sudden you're going, you know what, I'm not really into this app anymore, but you're still doing the mindfulness, then the app don't matter. The app was the catalyst to get you there. Okay, well now you, like, for instance, obviously, like Finch, I still use Finch, but I check on Blubbers. I don't necessarily actually use the app anymore. Because I don't need to, because now those skills are so entrenched in my daily routine, it doesn't cross my mind to not do them. They just happen.
Yeah. And another point on that is that it doesn't always have to necessarily be trying something new. It could just be, well, ask yourself what kind of hobbies and interests you've had before. So for me, I was really into my guitar playing when I was growing up.
I thought you were going to say whittling.
There's whittling as well, yeah. But guitar is something I've done since the age of like 12, 13. I don't do it as much anymore. And maybe one thing to say is, okay, well, I know that I enjoy just messing around on my guitar or learning a new song or whatever. So why don't I just build in 20 minutes a week, maybe, just to say, right, on Thursdays from 6 to 20 past 6, I'm going to just sit with my guitar and play it. And again, it's that almost like something you do not for any particular reason other than the fact that you just enjoy doing it.
Self-care.
Exactly, yeah. That's another one. Self-care is grounded in mindfulness. Yeah, the good thing is.
Yeah. I mean, I know for me, a lot of my self-care stuff involves playing late 90s and early 90s computer games, which are the worst quality I've ever seen in my life. However, they're fantastic, know, but that for me is my self-care. I like to at least, I mean, I've got other ones as well that I do daily, but on a weekly basis, I spend at least 2 hours playing some form of terrible noughties computer game, because that helps keep me grounded, ready for the next week.
Yeah. And again, for anyone who's listening to this thinking, well, how am I going to do that? I'm already so busy. I'd probably say to them, well, how's that going for you at the minute? How good do you feel on a daily basis that you're so busy? Like, is there any particular way that you can at least give yourself a 20-minute break from that?
And I mean, like self-care can come in the form of an hour a night watching telly, or 20 minutes, if for argument's sake. I mean, we both like BoJack Horseman.
Yeah.
Like one 20-minute episode every single night. That is 20 minutes a night of self-care. And if you did that before bed, you'd be surprised how much quicker your brain will shut off.
Yeah.
Again, like, there you go. 20-minute episode of some comedy show or something that you like with a cup of flavoured tea. There we go.
Exactly.
See, it's simple. I think for me personally, once I got past the fact that it's fucking stupid, I was all right, because I was like, I remember for months walking around being like fucking mindful, like under me breath, because I was so pissed off that it worked. It's the same as the exercise thing. It's the same thing. Like, some things that you really don't want to do because it just sounds stupid, you just have to kind of, swallow your pride and admit that it works.
Absolutely. And I think, there's a reason why I wanted to start with mindfulness when it came to talking more about coping skills. Because again, I think that mindfulness is much more than a coping skill. It's essentially an approach that you can take to completely reevaluate the way that you see yourself and the way that you see the world. Obviously, we've mentioned a few things, but if it's something that you're interested in but finding it difficult to kind of get a first step into it, there's various resources out there that you can go to. You can speak to your GP about it. You can maybe try a meditation class if you want to, if you're feeling quite adventurous. There's different ways into it.
You really need to stop answering my wrap-up questions before I ask them, because that was what I was going to say. But I suppose then in terms of help and things like that, I'd imagine that we'll probably get a mindfulness post on the blog. Get you to get some like video links that would be good for different practices. Some, like you say, like essentially some resources, and get them linked, and pop a few bits and pieces of information, maybe covering things that we've kind of glossed over in a little bit more detail, because I know we're both very conscious of keeping this a slightly shorter episode.
But if there's one thing I wanted to say, just to kind of sum this up, is I know it's, I'm not going to insult anyone's intelligence by pretending it's this easy, but whatever experience you're going through, whatever condition you might have, fundamentally there's a realization that we don't have to be defined by it. And the first way you're going to stop yourself from being defined by it is to recognize that you are a separate thing to all the things you're experiencing.
Well, thank you very much for explaining that. Do I do it? Yeah, I'm going to do it. Your mindfulness presentation that I've had the pleasure of sitting in on, how would you feel about that being re-recorded and posted?
I mean, thanks for putting me on the spot.
You're very welcome. I'm making a habit out of this now. This is how I'm going to start asking you questions.
No, I mean, for anyone who wants to sort of follow our blogs and, various social media posts, that you'll know that I use mindfulness a lot in the way I kind of work. So I'm sure there'll be lots of resources available.
But thank you very much for taking the time to go through and explain all of that, and obviously discuss your experience with how mindfulness works for you, because I know one major thing is that we are very different in the way we employ mindfulness. There's no right way to do it. If it works for you, it works for you. The only thing that I think you'd probably agree with is don't give up after one attempt, because like everything, it'll take a few attempts for you to actually start seeing the benefits. But again, it's something that you do see the benefits of quite quickly, in my opinion, if you actually implement it into your daily routine. So as always, thanks very much for listening.
Just wanted to say, now there's like a few videos on our channel. If you're finding this useful or interesting, consider subscribing.
Oh, is that where we're at now? We're plugging now. We're like and subscribe.
We'll let you know when our next video comes out and stuff. Just if you want to keep a track of this, it's free to do and it really helps us out.
Well, thanks very much for listening. As always, speak to somebody you trust and don't be a dick. Thanks very much.